number 9, the Honourable David Parker. Question number 9, the Honourable David Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I ask my question to the Minister of Economic Development? How many additional Cabinet papers has he submitted to Cabinet since he told the House in July? In my capacity as Minister for Economic Development, I've submitted 14 Cabinet papers in the last 6 months.
The Honourable Gerry Brownlee.
Mr. Speaker, I've submitted 11 papers as Minister of Economic Development, 18 papers as Minister of Canterbury Earthquake Recovery, and 20 papers as Minister of Economic Development, Energy and Resources since that time, 49 in all.
Supplementary.
The Honourable David Parker.
Do any of those papers update Cabinet on the ever-growing wage and salary gap between New Zealand and Australia, given that even when using John Key's massage purchasing parity figures, the wage gap with Australia has risen yet again to total $175 per week for each worker, with the gap having widened by $37 per week since the election?
The Honourable Gerry Brownlee.
No, but I refute those numbers, of course.
The Honourable David Parker.
Well, if he refutes those on the basis that the Prime Minister previously used, is he aware that the alternative and official measure of using the Australian Bureau of Statistics and official New Zealand figures also show the gap has increased yet again? And will he at least promise the House that by the election next year the gap will be no higher than it was when he took office?
The Honourable Gerry Brownlee.
Mr. Speaker, answering the first part of the question, I can't recall the first part of the question, so the answer is no.
Order, Mr. Speaker.
Order, the Honourable point of order has been called.
I seek leave to restate my question, sir.
I guess it's not an unreasonable request since the Minister did not recollect. The Honourable David Parker to restate his question.
Is he aware that the official measure from the Australian Bureau of Statistics and the official New Zealand figures from the Quarterly Employment Survey show the gap has increased yet again? And will he at least promise that by the next election the gap will be no higher than it was when he took office?
The Honourable Gerry Brownlee.
Mr. Speaker, this is a government that doesn't sit around twiddling its thumbs reading reports from other countries. We're about the business of helping this economy grow.
The Honourable David Parker.
Did any of those Cabinet papers include consideration of milestones for closing the wage gap with Australia? And if not, is the reason for his continued refusal to give us milestones by which his government can be judged the same reason that his government has stopped promising a step change in the New Zealand economy? That is, the government so obviously failing on both counts.
The Honourable Gerry Brownlee.
Mr. Speaker, all papers submitted to Cabinet by all Cabinet Ministers are with the intention of making life better in New Zealand for New Zealanders.
Order.
Point of order, the Honourable David Parker.
Mr. Speaker, I seek leave to first table a document prepared by the Parliamentary Library showing, on the basis that the Prime Minister used earlier in the year purchase price parity, the wage gap has grown yet again.
Leave is sought to table that document. Is there any objection? There's no... Oh, there is objections. There is objection. The Honourable David Parker, supplementary question.
And I seek
point of order.
Point of order. I seek leave to table a second document that, comparing the Australian official statistic and the New Zealand Quarterly Employment Survey, the gap has grown 37.7% since the election.
Whose document's this one?
It's prepared by the Parliamentary Library, sir, comparing the Australian and New Zealand statistics.
Any objection to that? There is objection. Point of order, the Honourable Rodney Hyde. Order. A point of order is called. The Honourable Rodney Hyde.
Mr. Speaker, I just ask you to reflect on the nature of that question. I didn't want to interrupt because I knew the Minister was more than capable of answering it, but the nature of the question...
Order, this is a point of order.
The nature of the question was how many papers had the Minister submitted to Cabinet? And then the question went, did any of these papers cover the wage gap? And then we had a whole series of supplementaries that were actually about the wage gap, which to my mind amounted to a question without notice. It seems to me that you might just care to reflect on that, whether it's appropriate that someone ask a question about the number of papers and then actually proceed to ask a whole series of supplementaries about what wasn't in them.
I think the point of order the member raises is a perfectly fair point of order. The member will note, though, that the Minister's answer wasn't to some of those questions that didn't relate directly to the primary were not that precise. And the member asking the question knew better than to seek my help to get a more precise answer when the supplementaries did not relate that closely to the primary question. It's a matter of, I think, the Speaker's got to assess all these things on balance, and there was no way I'd expect the Minister necessary to give a more comprehensive answer under those circumstances. But the point the member makes is a perfectly reasonable point. Question number 10, Hone Harawira.
Tēnā koe, Mr. Speaker, kia ora tātou.